I had two very close friends of mine that both had natural births, and I thought that it was so radical. And I think that the power we have as women is accentuated when we do things that are hard. And I experienced that in my music career. I experienced that in my surfing and life and my relationships. It's just the things that we do that are hard usually end up with the most incredible results.
Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. Today's show is a birth story, and I love doing birth stories. I have Zach and Kasondra on. They're very fresh, you guys, and they look really good for being very fresh. So if you're going to watch this on YouTube, you're going to see how fresh they look, and they might not think that, but they look really good for just having a baby. I'm going to start by having them introduce themselves a little bit. We do have a baby in Kasondra's lap, so you might hear little hiccups and little sounds from a brand new newborn. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Cassandra Levin, and we live in Cardiff. And I'm an opera singer. I surf for fun.
You're an opera singer? Okay, I knew you guys were surfers, but I didn't know that you had the power of the breath like that. Wow, we're going to talk about breathing in this episode. That's a piece of information I did not have. Fantastic. Zach, what about you?
My name is Zach. I'm the husband and dad now. I'm a surfer as well. And, it's kind of what we do. Hang out now with the family and surf.
In class, when we had different visualizations, these two always went back to the water. And when we, bring the babies into your visualization, I'm holding the baby on the surfboard. The baby's on the surfboard alone. Like, it was so magical to hear their vision for how their family was going to be progressing because they literally live in the water. You probably just sleep at the house, but live in the water. Is that kind of how it works at your house?
It's close.
Yeah, it's so sexy. I love it. So can we start with what kind of fears or worries were you guys bringing into birth or labor or postpartum or anything like that?
For me personally, I didn't have a lot of fears around it. I was very careful about who I asked for feedback and for advice from, which I think was helpful, so that I didn't take on other people's fears and concerns. I've had a lot of friends that have had miscarriages and losses. And so I think for me going into starting our family, I just wanted to go in really open and positive and try to not hold on to any worry or fears so that it was a positive experience as much as we could make it.
But did you know you wanted a natural birth?
Yes. I had two very close friends of mine that both had natural births, and I thought that it was so radical. And I think that the power we have as women is accentuated when we do things that are hard. And I experienced that in my music career. I experienced that in my surfing and in life and my relationships. It's just the things that we do that are hard usually end up with the most incredible results.
Fantastic. Let's all note that in our brains. What about you, Zach? Any worries, or were you like, it's not coming out of my body, so?
Yeah, kind of that. I mean, I didn't really have I also didn't really know that much about the whole process. So, taking the course and going through it, I've learned a tremendous amount. But no, I didn't really have any specific fears. I think maybe more so about raising a healthy, happy, productive child is maybe the biggest concern.
Well, good. That will stay with you forever because that never goes away, right?
Yeah, maybe work as well. I was working a ton and I was a little concerned about like the home life balance.
Right. And I think we always, we're struggling with that forever, right? We want to be home with our family, but we also have to pay the rent.
Right.
Feed everybody. Well, Kasondra, when you were starting to prepare for birth, what was important to you to prepare? Were you listening to podcasts? Were you obviously listening to family and friends? But what else were you doing to get ready for labor and birth?
The podcasts were helpful. The sharing of friends, they were so honest and raw about the challenges and the unknown of going down this path. Also, the power of going down that route. And then the books, the Hypnobirthing book that you shared with us, and then Labor Like a Goddess was really helpful. Also, I'm going to forget her name, but the woman who wrote Crib Sheets, that was a really good book that we read throughout the pregnancy. And then I think just staying really grounded and focusing on like health and exercise and moving, like never staying still. I think that really helped my whole pregnancy be very positive because even when I didn't feel that great early on, like just having that as my momentum, help my momentum stay positive and help my brain and just be in a good place. So I think all those things. But then having your class, I mean, the class really, it really helped Zach and I to connect about certain things that we didn't foresee as part of the planning and gave us knowledge that we had no idea we didn't have.
And don't you think when you get educated that because labor is so unexpected and you don't know the twists and turns, if you have a kind of a foundation of information, that helps you to sway with whatever shows up, because you guys had some sways that you weren't planning
We
on.
had some sways. We had some sways, and we definitely called upon the information you'd given us. And really, I think the thing that helped the most with the challenges that came up for us just took time. There was no rush. I mean, that was a blessing that we didn't have to rush with a lot of our choices, but we were able to really take time and really consider all of the options. And we knew all of the options because of the class. And that made a really big difference in how it all went overall. So,
And Zach, how do you feel about the education that you got?
I mean, I can't imagine having gone through the process without it. Like I said before, I didn't really know too much about what everything, the whole birthing process entailed. And like I said, I wasn't that worried. I could have gone into it without all the knowledge that I had, and it would have been a lot more difficult. I think having taken the course, having that foundation of knowledge really gave me and gave us the confidence, no matter where we were in the process, to know, we're able to make good decisions and we know what's going on. So it wasn't really worried.
I think too, when a partner goes in with information and they're not freaked out, they are able to stay steady through the whole process because it is so unpredictable. And nurses, doctors, midwives read that like, oh, they got this. They feel pretty confident.
and you said that in the class, and boy, did it make a difference. We were treated, I think, so differently because we came in with the knowledge and because we were prepared. I think that was what you said in class. You said that 3 or 4 times, I remember, and it just made such a difference. They treated us with such respect and like appreciated us coming in with knowledge versus just being like, hey, we're here to birth a baby. Let's let you guys take care of it all. They were really grateful.
It's so different. Yeah, because then they really want to work as a partnership with you,
Exactly.
right? They respect that you guys come in with information. They've got information. And in this moment, we're having a conversation about what would be best. It makes such a difference. So sexy, sexy.
I think they sensed we knew what we wanted to do, and they kind of gave us a lot of autonomy because of that. We kind of just did our thing, and they popped in and out. Yeah,
So great.
Made a
So
big
great.
And we
difference.
were
Okay.
alone so much. Like they gave us so much space.
But yeah, because you can do it like that. You're not freaked out. So good. Okay, so let's start with your birth story. I want to start from the top and just move through it. And you guys, Zach can pop in however you want to pop in.
So it was Wednesday morning at like 3 in the morning. I'd woken up and I had some fluids leaking and it was substantial. So I woke Zach up and I just said, I think we should call in. Our doctor had like a after hours line and then they transferred you to a midwife at the hospital. And then they said at the hospital, it could be that you have a tear. Why don't you see how you feel for the next hour? And as I was talking to them, it was another big gush. And so I was like, okay, I think we're going to head over. And she was like, great, we'll see you soon. So we got there. Luckily, we had everything packed and we were ready. We didn't think that we were going to be admitted that day. Didn't feel like
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't that big of a gush to where we were like, oh, your water broke. It was like,
Yeah.
well, we're
You're peeing your pants.
Sure.
You know, at that point, sometimes, it's a little confusing what's actually happening. 39 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, so Zach got the car all packed. I kind of took my time and did a few things. I think I even put some dishes away and he looked at me
You
like,
made the-
what
you
are
made
you
the bed?
doing? I made the
It's
bed.
not an
That was
emergency,
super
guys.
important to me.
It's not an
I really, like,
emergency.
I put our pillows out. I got everything situated so that when we came home, it was all good.
And
He
aren't
was
you
like,
glad you
"Okay."
did that?
Yes, I am very
Yes.
glad.
I mean, like you said, we were both I think I had the same feeling like, well, I think we're going to go in, get checked out, and they're just going to send us home.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope. Not when there's water
No.
leaking. That's not their protocol. Nope.
No. So we took our time, which was nice. We weren't frantic. We were actually never frantic throughout the whole process, which is
So good.
awesome. But you never know when you're in that situation what it's going to be like. So it was amazing to have Zach, and we just were calm, which is really cool. And then we got to the hospital and they checked to see if it was amniotic fluid, and it was. And it was about 4:00 when they checked us in the morning. And they admitted us right away. And funny enough, there were 5 other women who had had their water break that night at 3 a.m. and called in. If we were 10 minutes later, we wouldn't have gotten a room. So our timing, even with my pillows, it worked out.
That was my mentality. I was like, I feel bad for those people, but glad we got the room.
Not my problem. Was it a full moon? Like that's
Yeah,
a lot of...
it was 2 days later, I think.
Okay, so waters are
Yeah.
tugged.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny. They find a room for people. Even if it's a closet, they find a room for people. They all stay in triage until there's a room open. It's fine.
It was just nice for us to just get settled since we were going to be there for the day. And then we were, our timing was interesting. It was right about shift change. So we had the first nurse who checked us in for about an hour, and then we had that midwife, and they gave us their opinions and their advice.
Because you didn't have any labor yet, right? Just like
No,
twinges, that's it?
just some Hicks contractions, very light, but as I had for the last few months, so it wasn't anything. We weren't progressing forward quickly. And so the midwife, she thought we should probably do Pitocin and kind of get an induction going so that they were very concerned about infection since the water had broken for the baby. And so Z and I really wanted to not do an induction. That was important to both of us if we had a choice, and we did. And so we basically just waited out till the next staff came on because we wanted to hear someone else's opinion.
We're in no rush. Let's see what the next person says.
But the midwife that gave us that advice was totally lovely because she was there for
She was.
the birth in the night, which was super cool that she was full circle.
I love how you bought a little time. Just like, well, we'll consider that, but we were going to buy some time.
Yeah, they came in a few times. We're like, okay, we're still thinking about it. And the nurse came in and she was like, take your time. There's no rush. There's going to be another midwife coming on soon. So she gave us a little bit of like, you're going to get another set of opinions here, which is great because those were the nurses and the doctors we were going to have for the rest of the day. They were lovely. Everyone was amazing. So then the shift change happened. The nurse came in. She was wonderful. She was so respectful of our birth plan. She read it through in front of us. And she said so lovingly, she was like, okay, so I see here that you want to do it naturally. At any point, do you want me to check in with you? And I said, I don't think so. I said, unless medically necessary, yeah, check in. But I think our plan is to do this naturally. And it felt like she was asking, do you want an out at any point? And it was nice that she did that ahead of time and didn't.
So she was asking to check in for medication, like if you want pain medication. Okay, that's great that she did that right off the bat.
And that
she was like, all right, I won't say anything. And she didn't.
She didn't for the rest of the day. It was amazing. And then the doctor on staff came in and was very, very frank and blunt with us and just said, I'm more of a conservative route. I would want to get you going on Pitocin, get this moving along for infection. For the baby, we want to make sure that she's, healthy and safe. Okay, thank you. My doctor came in, similar, just wanted to get things. He's like, not to speed this up, but just for the infection side of it, we want to maybe induce you. Think about it. Then the midwife came in about an hour later, and we told her what had been said to us. And she was like, I don't know if we need to do that. She's like, why don't we try the Cytotec, which is like the cervical softener. And we decided to do that. And so it was the pill that you put on the sides of your cheek and let it dissolve.
So taking it orally instead of in the cervix.
Yes.
Which is a much softer way to get things going than putting that in your cervix.
And that was around 11 o'clock. So we had been in the hospital for 7 hours at that point.
Fantastic,
with nothing,
guys.
With nothing happening. No contractions, really.
We're here for monitoring. That's it.
Yeah, we were just hanging out, playing backgammon, walking around, snacking.
We walked miles in that hospital. We literally put our watches on. Well, I didn't have a watch on, but Zach put his watch on. We just walked in circles and circles. And the nurses were laughing at us. It was so great. And then So they did a cervical check after the 4-hour side check, that period of waiting to see if it helps. And I was starting to have a little more contractions, but they weren't deep and they weren't progressing. I think I don't know how, if they were supposed to be getting more intense, but they weren't really. So
It did
the
increase. I mean, it
midwife,
was you were having pretty consistent contractions, but they just weren't very intense.
they weren't intense.
So it
Yeah.
was a slow start and they want it more intense and closer together.
Yes. But still, like, there wasn't any pressure. We still hadn't been like pushed to do any other medication. And even at 3 o'clock when they checked us, I was 3 to 4 centimeters dilated at that point. And the midwife said she saw that my waters had created that balloon underneath the baby's head. And so she was like, I think we need to break your waters. And at that point, Zach and I felt like that felt okay to us to do that. So we did that.
And did she tell you what could happen when she breaks waters? Like, did she tell you the intensity could go up?
Yeah, she said that this will get things moving.
Oh, yeah.
And because
Oh,
of
yeah.
and I think if it weren't for like the amount of concern around the infection, then maybe we would have gone a little bit of a different route. Maybe with that, maybe would have waited a little bit longer. But I think with that in mind, we wanted to be a little bit careful just about waiting too long. And it was instant. I like went to take a shower. So it was super cool at this hospital, at the Scripps La Jolla, they had the wireless monitor. And we got one, and they only have a few. So when you get in, make sure you ask for that if it's something that you want, because to be able to move and to dance and to sit on the ball and to not be thinking about the wires, hook up and disconnect all the time, it was so nice. And then being able to get in the shower while being monitored was amazing. Wasn't amazing for me because the contractions were so intense that the shower was not a good place for me to be at that point. So got out of the shower very quickly, and this was about 4 o'clock, and we basically had super intense contractions. I don't think they got more intense. I think they were just like full on consistent. Zach said we had a few minute breaks. I don't remember them.
And
It
so you
felt
guys
like,
are in your room. At that point, you didn't leave the room. No more walking. You were just in the room with intense surges.
yeah. And the only position that was working for me was standing with my feet on the floor and my head. I was like a 90-degree angle on the hospital bed. We raised it up so that I had my arms on the bed and my head pushed against the mattress. And Zach was pushing on my lower back. And that was the only thing. And he is a saint because he did that for 4 hours.
There you go, Zach. Told you, don't ever use that until you're ready to do it the rest of the time.
I mean, my job was pretty easy, relative.
Right? Holding that hip squeeze for 4 hours. Yep.
The only
It was
thing.
exhausting. We tried through the process. I was like, why don't we try a few different things? And she tried sitting on the ball, and that didn't work.
Oh, it was bad. Didn't work out.
I know.
They told me to do like a lunge into the hospital bench, like, because there's a bed bench thing against the wall. Tried that. Didn't work out.
Nope. When you find your place, you find your place. And you
Yeah.
know better than anybody else. And we're not going to be able to sway you from that. If that's what's working, you can still do it. Keep doing it.
Yeah, it was great. It was the only thing that worked. So that was about 4 hours of that. And then I think our nurse came in, I don't know, 5, 6 times to check
Just to
in.
check.
But it was just to check. She's like, you're doing great. You're doing great. Like, I remember hearing her say that and being like, wow, this is crazy. Like, we have so much space. They gave us so much space. It was wonderful.
And Zach, what was going on in your mind?
That was a point at which I was like, I wonder how long this is going to go on for. Like I had no concept, in which I guess you can't really have any concept, but the time actually went by relatively quickly. I mean, it was, it wasn't a long 4 hours somehow, but yeah, I mean, I was just curious, as each hour went by, I'm like, how far along are we? Like, where are we in the process? That's all I was thinking.
You're just doing it until it's done. There really is there's no magic thing with labor, because your baby is governing. This is how I'm fitting out, and this is what I'm doing, and this is where my air supply is. Like, we don't know. Yeah, it is a mystery. And
I was the family texter kind of before this happened. So I, kind of give little updates. And then as soon as they, she broke the bag and went into those strong contractions, it was like, people were texting me like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, sorry, I don't really have much time to text right.
Ignore me. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
We're doing our thing.
I'm like, yeah, getting intense. We'll talk to you in a few hours.
Which leaves everybody at home going, I hope they're okay.
Mhm.
What's going on? Like they're all stressed out. And you guys are like, we're in it. We're not even thinking about you guys.
Yeah, you had also kind of given us that pointer, which we did kind of made it clear to our families, which we didn't, we didn't let too many people know. We let her parents, my parents, brother, sister know, but we were like, we don't want this to be like a text fest while we're here. We don't want to be bothered.
So good. Okay, so you're 4 hours in, then what?
Then the midwife is like, let's check you again. And I know we wanted to not do a lot of cervical checks, but it was helpful for us to just see where we were at that point. At one point, Zach goes, so in the middle of a contraction, he's like, so how are you feeling? Like, what are you thinking? And I remember just being like, I didn't answer. Like, I was just like, there's no response to that. Like, we're doing this. This is what we're good. We don't need, there's nothing else we need to do. We're doing exactly what we need to do. So, but it was a great way to just be in touch with each other. Because if I was at a place where we needed to do something else, it was a nice, loving way of just, making sure that I was still happy with our choices. And I was. So she checked. They told me I had to get in the bed for the cervical exam, right? And that was terrifying because I was finally in this position that worked so well. And so I get in the bed and I'm like, oh no, another one's gonna happen. So I was on my side and I felt like that one lasted for like 2 minutes. Like I felt like it just didn't end.
I think it
It was so long. And it was probably 2 minutes, but it felt like long. So she did the cervical exam and it was so funny. Her face, she was like, do you feel this? And I was like, yeah.
She was kind of confused.
Yeah. She looked very confused. And she said, okay, I gotta check again. She's like, you're 9 centimeters dilated. And she couldn't believe it. So we were good. We were like, she's like, you can start pushing when you feel like the need. And of course, it was shift change.
Always.
I couldn't believe it. So like, yes, you can start pushing now. And we're getting a new nurse, literally, as I'm like, then they don't want you not in the bed. You need to be in the bed. But they are great with any position that you'd like to be in the bed. So I basically recreated what I was doing standing in the bed with the back of the bed upright at like a 90-degree angle. And I was on my knees and leaning over the top of the bed. So just recreated the standing positions. Yeah, the new nurse that we got was phenomenal. Such a good coach. So patient.
And
so
had you
loving.
felt the urge to push yet? Like, were you feeling pushy?
I started to try a little and it didn't feel super at that time. So I tried to really think about the breath. That was one thing that so I was trying to do like the breathing, the exhale push breathing. And when I did that, it didn't feel like my body was being productive with the push. I think that might be why I didn't feel ready to push. I'm not sure really, but when the nurse just said, why don't you try doing the hold breath and push, take a deep breath in, hold it and push, that felt good to my body. So I did that for the next hour.
There was also a time that I could tell her body started pushing, and that's when I could tell you were kind of pushing a little bit to begin with, but then your breathing changed, sounds you were making changed, and I can tell your body started pushing itself. And then that's when with your breathing and pushing us and as well, that really I think I could tell that the process changed.
Well, and we had watched enough pushing videos that you're probably recognizing it, like, oh yeah, so you have been there, done that, seen that, heard that, right? Although a lot of it has fun, light music in the background, and it's not the pushing sounds we want you to hear. No. But yeah, I'm sure you were hearing real sounds at this point.
We had a pretty good soundtrack going on in the background too, though.
Oh, it had such a good birth track. It was like our song list was just amazing. It worked out so
good.
Well. Yeah,
we had fun. We were having fun. We had the diffuser going with some good scents and the good music. At one point, someone came in to like change the towels in one of the cabinets or something, and she was like, I like this in here. I want to hang out in here with you guys for a while.
You're like, that's good, but we want privacy. But isn't it a great room? And so you pushed for less than an hour. So tell us
Yeah, I
about
was
that
on.
part. As
It was about an hour. It was really interesting. Without medication, I think our bodies know what they need to do. And so at one point, Zach was like, you can take a contraction off. You don't need to push everyone. And that was good to hear because you start to feel like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get there, and we're getting close. We're getting close. But
good coaching,
by
Dad.
I mean,
yeah,
I
it
could
was
see what
really
was going on. So I was like, we're not quite there. We got a little ways to go. Why don't we take some I could tell
Are
she
you
was
still
getting
on your
tired
knees
too.
at this point? Are you still on your
yeah
knees at this point?
the whole time, except for the end. Except for when we birthed her, I changed positions then. But yeah, the contractions were still intense, and the nurse was lovely. There was the only person in the room, just that one nurse. And she just had good advice and good things to say. And then Zach was so amazing and so supportive with it, and taking the breaks really, even though they're still super intense because you're in a contraction, it was really good to have that moment of just not pushing and not feeling like, yeah, it wasn't. I think the time off probably helped the outcome immensely. So something that was very interesting for me was because we did it unmedicated, I felt like I was way more connected to my body, and my body was telling me when to push, when to breathe. And I wasn't being coached by someone because they were looking at the screen, because they can see when you're on the monitor, they can see when you're having a contraction. And when it was really, really intense, and I wasn't always sure whether I was in a contraction or like out of a contraction. If I had been medicated, I don't know that my body would have helped me with the process as much as it was able to, because I was truly present to what my body was telling me to do and what it was asking me to do at the times. So I knew when it felt right to push, and don't know that it would have been that way had we gone the medical route.
And so nice that you had staff that was willing to be like hands off with that.
Yeah, totally.
And they were
The
stoked
staff was
about
so
it.
wonderful. Yeah, they were so incredible. They were so complimentary. They couldn't believe we did it without medication. I think as you go into the hospital and you're trying to do unmedicated, just really stand your ground, and really, because they were inspired by what we brought there, what we brought to the hospital, our energy, the determination to do it. We never questioned it. Never. I mean, of course you want to question it, right, when it's really intense, but we just stuck to what we really wanted, and we were fortunate that we were able to. I know that that's not always the case, but they were so impressed with the way that the birth went for us, and it was really cool to get to see them be inspired by something that they do all day long.
There was a little surprise when she came out. So tell us about the surprise.
So she was big on having her hands around her face, like in our ultrasound. And so she decided to make her appearance with her hand up by her head, which, I mean, super fortunate. Very little tearing and damage happened. But that was the only reason. The midwife that birthed her said that was the only reason that there's any tearing whatsoever, because her hand was there, not because of anything
Those
that
little
I did.
nuchal hands, man.
Yeah, powerful little hands.
Powerful little hands. So Zach, did you see her come out with her hand on her up by her face?
No, I didn't see that.
He's like, I didn't watch that.
Thankfully.
But they had me reached out and touch her head, and that was well, we didn't choose to have a mirror or anything, but they had me reach down and touch her head when she was starting to enter the world, which was crazy, and gave you like a whole nother burst of energy to just like, yeah, this is so radical.
Sets off a whole other group of hormones when you touch that baby.
And I was on my side. When did I don't remember. When did we switch? See,
Once you got real close, like the head was
starting
pushing out a little bit, and then you changed positions and laid on your side.
laid on my side, and then Z helped with one leg and I held the other leg. And that was a really powerful position, I thought, because I was able to also touch my legs, which was nice if I wanted to have that to kind of ground. And yeah.
And so she comes out and immediately goes up to you. What was happening in that moment?
Skin to skin instantly. So special, so amazing. She smelled just heavenly, so amazing. She was a little bit blue, but that went away. And they did they delayed cord clamping, which was great. And then we ended up having like 3 hours after birth in that room, partially because of what they needed to do to tend to me. And then because at the time we delivered, it was 8:23 at night, so there wasn't a huge rush for us to move out. So that was really
Thank
nice
goodness.
to have that
And she
time.
stayed on your chest for probably like 30, 40 minutes, but her temperature was a little low, so they were a little bit concerned.
And
So
they did all
after I
the
think like
heating
30 or
blankets
40
too. They tried
minutes,
a lot of things
right?
before.
Yeah. So then they took I went with her over to the little heating, the little I don't know what you call
Unit.
that thing, but yeah,
That was the first time they
heated
took
her up.
her though
Yeah,
from
took
me.
like 15 minutes, and then went back over,
And then
put her back on her
you had
chest.
some skin to skin too over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they worked on me for a while. It was like an hour, I think. But still she came back right when after, which was so nice.
And Zach had the skin to skin when she was away from you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you guys even had a pretty good postpartum switch where everything was, when they're getting ready to take you to postpartum, it was mellow and it was slow. It wasn't rushed. There was no panic. It was just continue on where we're continuing.
Yeah. The big thing after the labor was that you need to urinate after, and I just couldn't. So and it took a little while for my placenta to birth the placenta. So I got pretty lightheaded, and I think they just decided to give me a little more time for the
We'll take it.
urination part. Yeah, so they let me actually go to postpartum, and then I was able to use the restroom there versus making me stay there until I was able to, which was nice to not
Yeah,
feel that pressure.
right when you were giving birth, like at the moment you were giving birth, there was a lot of hustle bustle. There was probably 10 people in the room. Everyone was doing something. I don't know, there's a lot of things to do apparently.
So
But
much
there
to
was
do.
a lot of people in there. And then once it was all over, everyone left except for two, I think it was just two nurses, and they were just kind of hanging out with us doing a few things, and we had another, I don't know, hour after that.
Just to keep it mellow. You probably had your music still playing in the background.
Oh yeah. Hallelujah was the one that was playing right when she was born.
It's kind of cool.
It was really cool.
So great.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked a little bit off air about breathing and pain. Can you kind of expand on the breath and what you wanted to talk about with that?
Yeah. So in the Labor Like a Goddess, there's a chapter on pain and how we as humans perceive pain. So when we like break an ankle or break a wrist, we know that the end is in sight. We understand like that there's a recovery period, but we're able to handle the pain because we know that it's going to end. And I think the book brought out a lot. It made me think a lot because it said the reason that labor is so challenging is because there is no end in sight. You have no concept how long it's going to take, what your body's going to need. And to not look at the pain in a way of it's happening to me versus like this is our way of bringing her into the world and it's bringing us closer to her, and that intensity building isn't really pain, it's more just like
The
fuel
process.
it's the process. So that was really helpful to read that.
Well, and just with your capacity to breathe as an opera singer, like I can't even imagine how well versed your diaphragm was for that. It's like, oh, I was made for this.
Yeah, it
Like
was
that's
funny with
pretty
some of the
phenomenal.
with some of the videos. I was like, "Oh, I don't think that I would make that noise breathing." And I said that to Z a few times, and I was like, "Nope, that's the only noise that worked. That
She made
low
that noise.
humming, like your chest rumbling." Was all I did for 4 hours, 5 hours. Like it was the only thing I think that made my breath stay connected to my body. Otherwise, you want to hold your breath because you're in that type of intensity. And I tried to like change the word from pain. Like it's not pain, it's intensity. And I think thinking of it that way and that the breath was helping that intensity do what it needed to do and not to hold it. And also Z was so wonderful by just saying, take a breath, make sure you're breathing. Like, cause you do want to just kind of hold it and tighten up with that kind of sensation. So, but I was just gonna say with the intensity, I think the deep breath that you talked about in class, I have a little bit of a different like take on breath just from singing, but that really is where you want it to be. You want that deep breath and that like grounded breath that makes you feel like you're you know, so powerful. That's the breath that you want.
Well, and I love, because you're an expert in breathing, because you have to be to deliver that kind of sound on stage. You're like, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, that's a different take on it, until you're in it. And then you're like, oh, it's different.
Yeah, there was not going to be a silent breath in that room. There was no
Right.
way. I mean,
No.
that wouldn't be natural. It wouldn't be natural. So
No, it really is a guttural, a dying cow sound. I don't know how to explain it,
yeah,
but
that's
it works.
you're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Just like I'm never going to be on the toilet, and that's the mom who labors on the toilet.
Right.
I'm only going to be in the water. That's the woman who hated water. Like, it's just, you never know, right? You just never know. You have to go with no expectations and go with what's presented, because we just don't know. What would you say the theme of your birth was? If you were picking out the lessons you learned or the experience that you had, what kind of theme do you think?
I think I would say calmness. You know, we were calm, we were happy, we were, you know, confident in what we were doing. We really didn't have concerns. I think, you know, creating that really peaceful, happy, fun environment that we were in, I think that kind of set the stage for how everyone was treating us, and how, you know, our mindsets and our just how everything went. That was kind of, I think that was a great environment that we set up for ourselves.
It's almost like there's a confidence in the room of get on board with here we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
The calm was a big part, and the lightness. I'm a real big advocate of being happy, and it was nice that there was never an anxious moment, really. We just had a very peaceful, happy, joyful day, and the day flew by, which is so wild. And it was just magical.
Well, and I know where this question is going to go, because you already are having that kind of a postpartum experience. When you first contacted me about your birth story, and this is great, and blah, 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 are you okay? We're doing great. There's some rough patches, but we're doing great. And I feel like you've carried that lightness and that joy and that teamwork into the postpartum period. Do you think that that's a true statement?
Absolutely. We've been just having fun. I don't know, just getting out, not sitting inside for just days, I think was a really big thing for both of us, because we're active people. And even though you have to go a little slower with things, like, it just feels good to do stuff and to. You said this in class about not feeling like you're a hospital patient when you're going to give birth. You're a person that's coming in to bring a child into this world. You're not a patient. You're not sick. And I think I was blessed to not have a super gnarly healing after our birth. So being able to do that after was nice too. Like, yeah, there's lots going on with my body that we have to tend to, or I have to take care of, but we can still do things, and we're not a patient. Like, we're healing from this miraculous thing, but we're able to still enjoy the time and laugh about the funny things that are going on constantly, and how many diapers we go through every 20 minutes with her.
It's
So true. It's so expensive.
It's wild.
It's wild. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Is there something that you wish you'd prepared more for postpartum? Because it does sound like you guys are having a nice, mellow postpartum together. But is there something that you would have wished you'd prepared more for, or that you think you needed to?
For me, I think the latching, like the feeding, was something that has just been a little bit of an interesting. It's going very well, but the start from going from the colostrum to the milk, that transition was a little bit hard on my body, which we just took an adjustment, just trying to do different things. Ended up needing to use like a nipple shield just to make sure that she was getting fed enough and help my body heal. But other than that, I think we just went into it with not a lot of expectations, or just kind of have gone with the flow every step. And I think it's been really helpful for us, because we both like to think things through ahead of time and be as prepared as we can. And with this, it was like we just didn't know what that was going to be and what that was going to look like. And so I don't know if there's anything we could have done to prepare better, but I think just being present has been the most beneficial thing for us.
And when it comes to class, Zach, because I know, Zach, you didn't know a lot about birth before, because if you did, that would have been weird. Oh, I've been studying birth for years. Like everyone would be like, something's wrong with that guy. So we expect you not to come into class with a lot of information. What kind of takeaways do you think that whatever information you got in class carried through that birth experience? Because there was no doula, it was you. Like, what do you think that early information did for that birth experience, because you were her sole support?
Again, I can't imagine not having that information. I would have been completely lost. I think it definitely gave me this sense of confidence and security to really eliminate any concerns. Like like I said, I wasn't really too worried about anything. I was, I was confident. We knew what we were doing. We knew what we wanted, knew, for the most part, what decisions we would have to make. I mean, I know at the very beginning, we were throwing kind of a monkey wrench where, the water broke right away. We weren't able to labor at home, which was the goal, but we set up that environment in our room and basically kind of created our little home there, which was great. And I think that just having the knowledge of what we're going to come across, what decisions we're going to have to make, and not being worried, not stressing out, not rushing into anything, just kind of taking things as they came and knowing that we're going to get through it one way or another. It's not going to be too hard. We're going to be on the other end. I mean, you had mentioned it in the class, was that the pregnancy has been the last 10 months. This part of it is just, we're at the finish line here. We're going to be done in a matter of hours, minutes. So that's a good perspective to have too. It's like, oh, this is it. It's going to be all over in just a few minutes here. And I think I harped on that a few times too. And it seemed like it was maybe getting hard and you were getting tired. And I think, just a lot of little anecdotes like that helped.
What advice would you give newly pregnant parents that are just starting on this road to labor and delivery?
I would say stay calm, stay positive, really talk to your partner, try to make sure that you're on the same page about things. If you're not on the same page, have understanding for where your partner is coming from. Always talk about the hard things as they come up. Don't let them pile up. Ask for help. That was a hard one for me. I'm very self-driven to take care of myself, and asking for help is challenging. And Zach always tries to help me, which is so lovely. And I've learned how to do that. That was also really important at the hospital. I was thinking about that. We voiced our needs and wants a lot, even when they were working on me at the end. Like they were pushing pretty hard to get the placenta to release and some of the stitches and stuff, and just saying, hey, this is a lot. Like, this is feeling like a lot. Can we, they're used to working on people that are sedated and who have had, medication, which is wonderful. If you need that, wonderful. But just remind them, like, say what you need.
Slow it down.
Speak up. Yeah. We aren't in a rush. We already did the marathon. This is just like
exactly
recovery now.
Yeah. And when there is no medication and they're working on that uterus, it is tender, and they are sometimes not the softest because they're doing a job, and you're like, I'm not numb. Remember, I'm not numb. Very important to state that. You're right. 100%. And what about you, Zach? Would you give partners any advice?
I would say, just do everything you can to plan and prepare. I think being prepared is the biggest thing. Go back to this again. It just gave us the confidence to know we're going to be making the right decisions. But it really, I think, relieves a lot of stress. And on top of that, I think being active going into giving birth, Kasondra she's a very active person anyway. So she was walking every day. She surfed until 2 weeks before you gave birth.
So good.
I think that really helped you bounce back a lot. Just being active. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. And your mindset, especially if you live outdoors like you guys do, that is going to help your recovery more than anything else. And you weren't back to surfing and running a marathon. You were outside in your element, which makes a huge difference in your mindset and your recovery. Absolutely. Well, you guys, thank you so much for sharing your birth story today. I'm so excited that you have her finally in your arms, because, man, I'd seen her on a surfboard in your head, for 5 weeks every time we talked about that. So I'm sure those pictures are coming at some point when she actually is in a little wetsuit and doing that thing.
We want to thank you because the class was amazing. You made it feel so manageable. You created such a safe environment for us to share, to listen, to learn, and you made this process. You made it really special. And I think without this class, I don't know what it would have looked like, and it wouldn't have been. I don't feel like we would have felt as empowered going into it. And it's pretty amazing that 5 classes with you gave us the tools that we needed to bring her into this world. And we did exactly what we wanted, and we took our time, and you're a remarkable teacher, and we're really, really blessed.
Thank you. I feel like what happens when we do these classes, the continuity with the parents that show up for each class makes the class, because I'm literally just bouncing off your guys' energy. And that was a remarkable class. And you guys were just the way you participate. I can give you knowledge, but if you don't take it to heart and make it your own, it's not going to do anything. So, true heroes are you guys. I just show up for the horse and pony show. I do love what I do. That helps. But I appreciate that you guys took the time and effort to put the practice in.
It was worth it. I mean, it was hard at the time too, because going, working all day, come home, like, okay, now we got 3 hours of class to go. Don't really want to do this right now, but in hindsight,
but you always showed up with a smile.
Oh yeah,
you did show up
like out of the
yeah.
Out of frame. Everybody's eating out of frame. So funny. Well, thanks you guys for being here, and we will see everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.